Hello, Active Sage here on the Sage channel, and this is Star Citizen Alpha 3.2 PTU, aka the test server, and this, in front of us, is the MISC Prospector, the first mining ship in the game, and they've actually just added mining to the game in this recent build. Now, what is an ECL? An extremely close look, and by that I mean I'm going to go ahead and stick my head up against every little bolt in this ship and take a good look to see if the art is what I consider up to snuff and beyond it, or if it's just good enough. Sometimes they've been good enough, sometimes they've blown my socks off. Anyway, the MISC Prospector, as I already said, is a mining ship, and boy is it a beauty to behold. It's absolutely one of the most gorgeous ships I've seen in game. They really did a great job at it. We'll go ahead and start at the top front and work our way around. Of course, it'll probably take a minute or 5, but well, we'll get to it. Alright, so first up, we have this beautiful glass cockpit at the front with a, well, insane field of view. You might know that a lot of ships in the game, well, they lack that field of view. They have very, very limited fields of view. This ship, even though it's not a fighter, it's a mining craft. So in theory, you're going to need that field of view. So they have this huge single piece of... Oop, why am I suddenly down there? Piece of glass. And, yes, transport beacon, that's a new thing they've set up as well. Anyway, if we were to fly around that, you'll notice the glass, of course, does come down towards the bottom. I'm actually going to pop in the first person just so it's a little bit easier. Unfortunately, we do get the UI, and I don't think there's a way for me to disable that right now. But I can press and hold F and get my nice little pointer out so I can actually point at things specifically. So what I think is quite beautiful is this cut-in. They have these reaching out from each of the sides, and then they have the actual spotlights of the ship mounted to the outsides of that. Now, if we turn on our own light and fly up, you'll see that they don't just sit there on the geometry. They actually have these pretty nifty little, well, sort of like bent metal, melted metal sticking out and actually merging into the back plates of these. And you can see they even have little solid flat lips before it curves out and flattens again. Unfortunately, at this range, you can indeed see the geometry, the polygons, but it's still a pretty good look. And once you get to about right here, it no longer becomes an issue. So that's not too bad. Only other thing I would say is this weird yank down right here is quite nasty. Quite nasty. Besides that, though, it's pretty good looking, and it's a very interesting design, the way they have the actual heavy metal coming out here as well, as if to be basically a shield in case you actually bump into something, instead of just the light sticking out here and getting broken off. Also, I do quite enjoy the bump out right in the center there. I love my harder angle, so I love this thing bumping out just in the front under the seat. We also have the actual mining laser itself, which is a work of art on its own. You'll see texture quality actually seems really, really high on it, and I think they have actually modeled in most of this stuff. Like, this is just beautiful details modeled in here, like this cable that comes out and wraps around and all the way up before plugging in this beautiful, beautiful gold cable. And it's not just a straight thing, it's actually got a huge amount of details to it. Looks like we have another one there, and if I'm correct, yep, there's actually 2 down there. Probably 2 on each of them. There are. Just very, very cool. A truly interesting piece of design. I like the little bump outs and the way this is sort of clipped together. This is by far one of the most interestingly detailed pieces on the ship. Coming down from these little tiny extractor lasers, which I believe are what those are, on this beautiful ring with some wonderful texture work, and I think, yes, that's actually modeled in there as well, the wires and whatnot. Great amounts of detail. Even those openings, I believe, are modeled in. We come down to some struts to allow this thing to actually move, and it does move around a bit. Unfortunately, right now, just this whole sort of thing moves, and you can see through here, you can actually see through the textures, just one side, and they have nothing capping this off right now, which is really quite disappointing. I'm thinking that in the future, maybe this thing will move a little bit different, but for the time being, they just have this whole front section moving. Actually, yes, in the future, I can almost guarantee that this section here is actually going to be deforming and soft. It looks like fabric, so it'll probably move with that. So we can ignore that gap right now. It's a pretty cool cowling. Some nice details back here with the these little guys coming out. You can see, again, it's got the 3 little extractor lasers. Back here, it's got, I'm assuming, 3 of these interesting little boxes. Yep, there's a 3rd one. And their wires run all the way in and plug into the orange section, only in one spot. An interesting choice in design, and, well, rather beautiful. Now, we can actually extend this whole thing out, so we'll probably come back and look at it later. But it is truly a gorgeous sight to see. Okay, so now that we've gotten distracted with that, let's go back up to the top and continue on like we said we were going to continue. So, standard MISC design, sort of like rounded aircrafts of the olden years. Unfortunately, I do see some wonkiness going on in this, or the bolts seem to like deform, get sort of triangular like that wonkiness. But overall, it's a nice, beautiful ship. Let's actually fly with the sun behind us. There we go. Get some more sheen on the metal. Got some nice breakups here as well, where we have these pieces of metal sticking up just to give it some detail. And then, of course, this nice piece of glass opening right here. You can't actually use it too well when you're in the chair, but it's cool to see it. And then they have this interesting big chunk of metal that sort of folds out, and it doesn't just go in a straight line. If you can see from the side, it comes out and then goes down at an angle before having that circular cut, which is a nice thing. Instead of just having this same exact sort of rectangular cut right here, it breaks it up a bit by having that circular thing, which also, I believe, is where the chair itself on the inside, yes, mounts to it. So it's almost like its own big support strut, or if everything else got torn away, as long as this thing is still intact, your chair is actually going to be sitting there, even the whole front of the ship is taken out. Got a relatively standard maneuvering thruster here, which is looking very, very flat right now. These textures don't really look like they're pushing in, but it's a pretty cool thruster design. I really quite like them. We got a caution thing here with, I believe these are supposed to be vents. Unfortunately, it seems like, again, the textures aren't giving the proper parallax right now, so you don't get any feeling of depth on that. Nice little intake up here, and if we were to turn off our lights, I think maybe it's just a reflection of the sun or the lights inside. These seem like they're lighting up, but no, look at that. It definitely looks like there's supposed to be a spotlight right here and right here, so I'm thinking we rotate around. I'm not seeing anything. There must be lights inside that are clipping through. If we were to fly around to the underside here, are there lights on the ceiling in there? There are. So I'm guessing maybe these lights are clipping through because I don't actually see anything to give off the light right here. Unless it's supposed to be that shinier piece of metal, but that doesn't make sense. And there's a horrendous, yeah, it's just metal, horrendous texture seam right there. Or they have two different materials, this material here and this one here. Nice little setup though with the arrows and whatnot there, breaking it up. It's a good thing, just shame about the texture seam. Coming back here, we got this, which sort of reminds me more of an Aegis ship, but these are much thinner than most things on an Aegis ship. We can turn on a flashlight and actually see we have a little bit of negative space under there, and maybe a vent. Yes, there's actually a bit of a vent thing in there, which is really, really cool. Nice little chop into the front, like somebody just took a clay sculpting knife and shoved it into that area and sculpted out. Nice little break up here as well, sort of keeping the same design language as that, almost as if it's a roll cage of some sort. Coming back farther, we actually have an axis port of some sort. Again, just texture work, but it's pretty good looking. Sometimes I see wonkiness, like whatever's going on here, the texture seems. I seem to remember there's stuff having fewer of these in the past, but maybe I just didn't catch them as easily. So we've come to a huge change in the ship's design. Up to this point, it's been all smooth. Suddenly, it gets a much more industrial. So before we move on to that, we're actually going to come down and follow this curve here, which curves down the ship. Unfortunately, you can see the polygon a little bit. That's not too bad. And I love the way it sort of almost hugs this outer area here. And if we were to actually back up, you'll see that this whole front of the ship bows up gently and continues to bow up to this point. Like the whole thing, it sort of flattens out here a bit, but mostly bows up and then bows back down before smashing under this thing, which gently curves down. Yeah, they actually have like some lines to break it up as if it's different pieces of metal. A bit, could use a tiny bit of love on the UVs here, it looks like, but a little smudgy, but pretty cool. A step thing, so you can almost imagine somebody using that to step up. Not exactly sure, but especially when that right there says no step. Pretty beautiful thing though. And I also like the way that blurs down and then into another circular shape. This whole thing right here, which has, I believe this is another engine, but it could also maybe function as an intake. It's actually pretty nifty that they modeled some of the insides of that as well. Even if that grating does just push into nothingness and yeah, some wonky weirdness texture stuff going on there. I guess they don't want your face getting quite that close to it. For a second there, I couldn't look to my left. Carrying on down, you can see that area that up front that blocks it. This is sort of like a whole different piece, almost like a tusk. So that blocker piece comes back all the way to here and merges into this with another smooth line. It has another one of these thrusters, but a longer one, quite impressive looking. Ensure personnel clear, because the ladder does come down. We'll get to the inside in a few minutes. But it's just very interesting. This whole section here, like I said, is almost like tusks or something, or arms reaching around the front of the ship. or like some sort of weird mustache and side hair. I don't know. It's interesting and weird that it's such a separate piece, but it actually adds design flow where you can feel different separate shapes. Like you have this sort of front upper area here, then you have the main body right here. This little guy is a divider, then you get the bigger rounded engine piece here, followed by those things to sort of divide the top and bottom, so it doesn't just blur or blob it down to here. And then you sort of have two pieces here as well, where you have another sort of just running piece here that sort of ends up merging into some other stuff. And then you have this big guy right here, which is the cowling for this, our mining laser. What I really love about this, though, is the way these come out of it. So it's just a cylinder, but they've flanged it out a bit. They've spread it out and made it merge into that, like it's been welded on there. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, it does look a bit funky here up top, where it's like they've just flattened off the top where they realized it was going to clip into the geometry. I'm glad they did flatten it off instead of just sticking it through the geometry, but it still seems a little bit wonky. And of course their like sort of weld seam things get all sorts of weird and wrong up there, which is quite disappointing. As for this circular piece, there's still more detail here, like the little interesting stuff going on around here, some texture craziness happening, but it's pretty nice. And then this, which I just noticed earlier, which is like its own little weird component wall behind it. You can actually see even more stuff. Well, not much stuff, but more. Release control. Click, 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 pop. Pretty nifty. This thing, I don't have too much to comment on. I'm usually not too keen on super smooth things, but it's interesting that they have this sort of armored shell on the texture work here, and then they have it more breakup with circular pieces and more lines before they actually have this huge sort of, I say huge, this, I think it's a bump out? I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on with the lights and maybe some parallax. I thought this whole section right here at the front, let me adjust my camera a bit, this whole section here at the front actually stuck out a bit farther than the rest of this, but it doesn't actually stick out any more than that. It just comes out this way and has that nice little cut to it, which is quite nice. Quite nice. And of course, if we were to look at it from the side, we get that nice rounded bottom area, whoop, with a sort of squared area, which actually is slightly similar to this if you think about it, where you have a slightly squared area and a rounded area. Of course, for it to really be the same, this would have to bulge that way, or this would have to, yeah, no, it would have to bulge that way to really be the same shape. Anyway, moving on from that, we get to this more industrious stuff now. I also think I might have seen some texture wonkiness. It's the bottom of the landing gear, whose textures, talk about popping. That is some bad chisel whizzle. Jesus, don't drink and drive. I gotta be careful because I have a habit of getting stuck inside ships, so we don't want that to happen here. What can I say? It's a ground texture that keeps popping in and out. A foot texture. Got some interesting details there. We'll put the landing gears down later and check them out a little bit better than that. We'll probably even land on the planet so you can see the ship in some light. I'm doing it in space, that way I can actually fly around the whole ship and get a good look at it all. These are its actual cargo storage things, so now we're getting to the more industrial section of the ship. These are where, if it mines materials up, it stores the raw materials in these, and apparently in the future, if the images are believed, these things are sort of fabricy. You can sort of see their weird wonkiness to them. In the future, they're supposed to be very small at first, sort of this piece would be all the way up here next to that piece, and they would expand as they fill with materials, and then they would actually be removed from like these magnetic clamps here and be dropped out, so you could actually drop them off and pick up new ones. Up here on the top, Jesus, these things are beautiful. They're really a piece of beauty. They have all these beautiful like metal struts holding together with little arrows on it, and then these nice, oh god, look at that, yeah, like sort of clamps together and everything, as well as this huge metal guard which forks right here, which just looks gorgeous. And if you look behind it, it even goes back. It doesn't just go straight back, it drops down a little bit here before going back to the rostoway and then forking again with a nice use of negative space, that triangular cutout right there. Absolutely gorgeous. I adore that. Coming back around this way, much the same. Nice little texture vent work. Some interesting little like round holes here where you could almost imagine them putting a hook there to pull it over, or if it starts to swing some weird way, or using a crane to move it. Interesting. I wonder how much of this will actually drop out if these are deployable and removable. And And we get some nice piping going into it. Again, they have sort of the hardened shell, sort of like they did right there on that piece, where they had the hardened shell before the rest of it. Except for this hardened shell is attached to something that looks very, very soft, or at least harder plastic that can bend at all those edge points. That comes into this nice machine right back here, with a nice assortment of little dots, some ribs to break it up a little bit, and of course this whole center section is dropped down a little bit, as you can see right here and here. Yes, which allows that upper section to actually reach forward and have these sort of cowlings here on each side of it to hold it into place, which is quite beautiful. And if we were to not get stuck, because that's about to happen, I can tell it, I can feel it in my bones. We can fly around whatever this mechanism is here. I'm really quite unsure. Looks like maybe it's actually something to push, like maybe this clamps down and pushes the whole thing forward or out or down. Hard to tell. I suspect its functionality is not in yet. It looks like there's no other moving parts than right there, so I really don't know what that's all about. But you can see it's on either side. It's actually just a floating bar of metal right here, which then connects and has another piece that goes all the way down. So maybe this whole thing flips over around this pivot point. So this whole piece of metal flips over onto it to keep it safe or something once this has been removed. Possibly. I don't know. We'll find out in the future. Also, nice control panel. Looks pretty much the same over here. Yeah, I don't know what this thing is supposed to be. It's weird. It's a strange mishmash of geometry with slightly harder stuff and then a lot of strangely smoother lines. Let's fly down here. Let's look at the bottoms of these real quick. So it looks like it's got a door on the bottom that can slide up or down. Do not stand, even though it's on the bottom of it, and some clamps for some reason, as well as these big old feetsies, rounded feetsies. The actual geometry of the main bulk here looks to be the same as the stuff up above. Down at the bottom of the ship, past that landing gear, a nice circular sort of puck that's held on either side like this, and you can see the main body of these circular things in the ship. So circular piece came back, it sort of blobbed out, but this was all sort of following the same shape. Comes to a hard end there, and another piece of rounded geometry starts here. But then it's got almost a rectangular piece there that eats its way back into just whatever this bulk is. And again, you can see a grouping of shapes. So you get sort of the tusks over there, followed by the other bottom piece, this rounded piece that reaches all the way in, and then this sort of weird clumpy thing here. It's probably the only piece that really feels a bit odd by. I really like that cut in end. I like rectangular stuff, so I'm quite alright with it. It sort of squeezes in, and you could almost think of this as a belt buckle, a humongous belt buckle that's just pulling the ship together right there, before it goes back to, I believe, an intake section. Yes, and the whole ship sort of becomes one big piece back there, but you can sort of see this section with the cut, I almost want to call it a triangle, but the card cut in right there is almost like its own different piece until this line right there, and then it sort of merges together. Hello, anything here? Now, I do believe there's a door I can access here. Yes, so we'll pop that open real quick. Absolutely gorgeous. I think in the future there's going to be a way to actually control something from here. Currently, no such luck. Relatively simplistic geometry that's just folded itself out here. Nice, though, with the big bulky arms almost reaching around this centerpiece that extended out. You can see how this would slide up into that. And then you got, of course, that nice control panel. It sort of looks like something from a kid's play area right now, because it sort of looks plasticky and unused, but still interesting. What does it actually say on the back side? Mind your head? Does that really just say mind your head? It does say mind your head. And keep clear. Alright. Bit interesting too, where you have these sort of rectangular pieces here that clearly hold this so it slides out, but then you also have circular pistons that push down the first section, which is pretty nifty. Looking inside, we have two almost cylindrical things here, which you can imagine them holding something. Cylindrical cutouts for them around here, again, keeping that idea. Some sort of little texture locky lock thing, very nice. Ooh, look at how horrible that geometry looks. There's a funky line going somewhere. It's weird. Not the best in the world. What else do we have in here? I love these heavy orange struts all over the place on the walls here in the triangular patterns. Even if you can see the polygons, it's quite nice. And then I also love these big pieces that come down and then curve around into the wall. And like this one that comes down that way and curves up. Looks like we might have some geometry clipping through from elsewhere right there, though. What else do we have in here? My own body. Okay. This thing looks much the same. Really hard to get a good look at all, but that's kind of good. If you could, then it might fall apart. Pretty nifty, though, that there is light in here, but there's actually proper lights producing it. It's not just coming out of nowhere, like we were sort of experienced earlier. There's actually light stuck in here. Even if the floor here just seems like it's got stuff stuck through it quite wrongly. And we can see off into the distance over there and just see some empty space inside the ship. Not sure what that all is. Maybe it's a landing gear that comes out, so actually would work. Alright, what else we got? Nice pipes, a center sort of extended cylinder ovoid shape right here with these pipes coming out on either side, and some more pipes coming out, which kind of doesn't work too well, considering that they have this texture here, which is circular patterns, and then they just have this stuck into it, and of course it doesn't get the same depth because they just sort of... The texture of this centerpiece looks like depth. It's sort of this bolt thing they've used everywhere, but they've blown it up to be really big here. But of course it gets the depth is killed instantly when you have this hard line that runs over it, clearly showing it's flat. So that just doesn't work. Anyway, let's close this up and watch this thing fold up. If I can. Yep, folds up. Pretty nifty. Also, did you see that? It did clip through the walls when it was closing. Interesting that you only notice it when it's closing, though. But yeah, watch over here. Did you see that? For a second it clips through. Very interesting. Really, I don't think I see that when it opens. Yeah, you don't. Huh. So oddly enough, I guess they're not playing the animation in reverse. Or they are, and there's some weird spline issues or something. Nothing too much to report over here. Caution, keep clear. Maybe some odd texture stuff going on right at top. Hard seams and whatnot. Well, not too bad. Let's not do the engines yet. Let's go back up and follow these struts back, shall we? Pretty interesting. They got a nice little bulge there with the actual big metal beams coming across. Another one coming back that sort of goes into this sort of beautiful shape they have here that we saw at the front of the ship, but they got one on each side, which really makes it work because it almost makes it feel like these big metal beams, these circular ones, which almost seem like two real-world modern, go in and all the way up here. It almost feels like, because you see them like this is some big piece of fabric and it's just being stretched out by them, which is pretty nifty. What else do we got going on here? This beautiful breakup. I'm moving around a lot, sorry about that. Let's zoom out a little bit and rotate our camera. This beautiful breakup here with this huge piece of metal. They have lines to make it look like it's not just one big piece of metal, which would have of course been a massive no-no if it was. But it's so nice to see that same sort of cutout here and then the same sort of cutout shape here. Polygons showing like crazy. Would have been interesting again to see that sort of circle and semi-square, circle and beveled square, I guess. But we got beveled squares over there, beveled squares here. This is almost a circle if it just had like a little bit more. Texture work on it looks good. The craziest thing here, honestly, is these sort of weld point things they've done here and the fact that it looks pretty wank. The way the lights... Yeah, it just doesn't look quite smooth as you would actually like. Sometimes I wonder if, even though my graphic settings are on high, if it's showing me something slightly less than that. This upper metal part really just feels like shielding for the big metal pipes and other things. And it sort of keeps that feeling up, or almost like straps holding the front and back of the ship together, but sort of keeps that up where these go in through here. They even have this nice little hump up for it. Unfortunately, no detailing around where this connects in, just disappears into a flat surface. And I think we're fine. These, once again, also just seem to disappear. There's some wonkiness in the texture work right here at that corner. The geometry is gone crazy bad right there. Oh my god, no. No, don't take me into the ship yet. I swear, I fall through everything in these games. Release control. Don't understand how that's release control. Caution, keep clear. Caution, keep clear. Also, warning intake. Ah, interesting. So this might be more for the engines than anything else. It actually has these cool little vertical intakes right here before it goes back the rest of the way. Not the nicest geometry, but I guess, again, they don't expect anybody crawling up here and doing what I'm doing. Similar to the cockpit area where we had that nice little bump out, they have a bump in right here too. Doop, doop. which is quite nice. Some geometry breakup here, or actually it's probably just in the texture. Really hard to tell. It's probably geometry breakup. And then again, these little things carrying the same design language all the way down the ship. I almost want to call it roll cage bars. Alright, coming from here, let's see. So oddly enough, these had these intake things, and they disappeared in there. We had these big pipes that I assume were just purely structural, these big circular pipes. And then they go into under that. But these seem to lead back almost in what looks like an engine setup or something, with this piece right here. It's quite odd. That's actually sunk into the geometry, which I really like that. The way it's got this negative space here to the sides of it to give it a little bit more detail instead of it just being flat on there. And of course that nice texture breakup before it sort of goes back and disappears, so I guess it is part of the engine. And maybe, sure enough, those struts, they keep the same design language where it's all sort of one big piece. Actually, it's not even looking like it's divided up right now. And we can actually see into the ship through some nice little cut-in holes over there. But it comes back the whole way and seems to actually disappear into the engine through some nice cut-ins here. And it looks like we got some lights stuck in here as well. Oop, and some nice little maneuvering thruster pucks. Pretty, pretty. Pretty, pretty. Quite like that. And then the main big back engine, which, did I just see massive texture walking? No. Okay, we're good. Which has a nice, like, curvature to it. The ship, oddly enough, sort of, this and the Avenger sort of remind me of the Millennium Falcon with their big, wide, flat engines, which I really like. Also it has this engine bulk over here, and it looks like maybe another maneuvering thruster right here. Yes, indeed, that is one, I would say. Quite nice. And also this one, usually they're sticking out a little bit. This one is actually almost like it's inset. It's quite interesting. The geometry of the main body of the ship actually goes inwards here, and then it sticks back out, and then drops in again to have the maneuvering thruster there. And then it has this big piece that comes all the way back and sort of ends up running flat with the exterior of the ship's body, as this sort of trench that was dug here ends up flattening out as well. Some weird texture seam stuff, as it looks like they were thinking about putting a line in here, and some stretching, but overall not too bad. And I definitely think that's a landing gear right there. Let's look at this thruster real quick. Whew, that's pretty. That's some pretty stuff right there. That red, the way it forks out, similar to the other pieces we were pointing out in the triangular. Again, some nice pipes coming out. I think this whole thing is, yep, modeled in. So you actually have this cowling that sort of pops up to give you the idea that these are coming out from inside of it. A bit of a shame they don't go back farther in there so you wouldn't just see the flat surface so much, but it's still pretty nice. Another piece of interesting metal just helping to fin some of the pipes here. Nice little cutaways, some nice detail work. Looks like some of the same stuff that was going on in the front engines. Just looking a bit nicer here, actually. Nice supports, a little bit more rounded edges than I personally would like. Before it goes up into the caution. Wow, it's some weird shapes in that too. I didn't even fully realize. So I'm assuming the top and bottom are the same, which are actually the sides when you're sort of in VTOL / landing mode. I do look that way. So it's almost like that big cannon at the end of the last Jedi movie, Star Wars, The Last Jedi. Probably no longer in theaters. But it sort of has this weird triangular move to it right here, as well as sort of like these outcropped pieces that almost look like they're shifting weight. But when you turn it like this, and it almost feels like a foot, because it will be facing down when you're landing. So yeah, that looks more like just an old jet engine there too. Interesting. The way this top and bottom piece merge into this, they sort of meld outwards into the actual cylinder of the main engine. And at the front, the way they sort of move forward and melt into it here. Very interesting. Huh. All very organic. So what do we got? Shape-wise, we have a cylinder here that just comes out, as well as another sort of cylinder here, which is spread back this way, but again comes out. Then we have the main cylinder, and then we have these sort of weird thingies on the top and bottom that sort of smash into it. I really like this here, though, where this is actually, this is deeper, has more depth than this, which is a cool thing, so it's not just a big cylindrical puck sticking out from the wing. We also have some cut into that, some more, excuse me, hello, I'm freaking out, ribbing over here to give it some more detail, and actually, oddly enough, these look like they actually have modeled in detail here, which is kind of crazy. Didn't expect that. These beautiful gold pipes shooting out and then leading into these fanciful little thruster guys here, which only 2 of them, but they're alright. Boy, that's not alright, actually. It's quite a bland texture when you get that close. Huh. Okay. Right. So there's apparently no collision some of this. That's... Ooh, and apparently I touched the ship and got gravity for a second. That could have been bad. Alright, so let's not do that again. What do we got? More, techno nonsense here. Square, some poly, some horrible texture work here. Just, what is going on, even? I don't know, but it's bad. Just awful. Okay. It sort of all reminds me of like a patio ware, plastic patio ware. That's what all this is reminding me of. It's like dirty, been out there in the mucky weather for a while. Also, this appears to stop before it goes all the way back to the back wall. The pipe just stops before it reaches it. Same with this one, which is obviously quite bad. Huh. Interesting, the geometry there, it's the way it's inset, but some serious issues. Nice little triangular negative space cut out there. Love the way that arches up and sort of blends into this. And this engine is just gorgeous. Look at that. You could actually have that as a screensaver. If maybe the geometry here was twice as great, because that's quite horrendous. This, on the other hand, is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Sorry, I actually was zoning out and thinking it could be like a massive fortress and there's a power of energy beneath it and people will be in that ring right there and the energy flows out of the top of it and it's huge and I got all lost in my own mind. Okay, let's head back to this. We got some nice clampy clamps that are reaching out and trying to hold on to it. Nice little little bits of random details sort of make it look like it's actually stopping right there. Maybe you could imagine pushing that down or pulling it up. Sort of looks like it's just sculpted plastic though. A little sad. Coming back more, much of the same, but nice amounts of detail here with everything. Heading to the front, something I didn't mention when we passed through here before. We got actually those little sort of roll cagey things again right there, and I think, yes indeed, look at that, we got them actually on either side of this as well as some more of these sort of maneuvering thrusters here. And of course, all that will be mirrored down here on the bottom. As for this actual intake, if you want to call it that, it has this beautiful cut in. Like this beautiful cut in right here, as well as the different texture to sort of break it up, and the fact that the breakup, the different texture, but actually lunges out here. Some texture stretching and some pretty noticeable geometry there, but eh. And then of course it has the inner cowling, this thing here reaching out with all of its beautiful little negative space cut holes, as well as the fact that its actual shape changes right here. We can see the cut in right here, and of course on the other side of it right here. Before we get to the actual inside, then we have this little pucky pucks in there as well. Some more pucky pucks right there. Yeah, and that blue, man, that blue just feels like a early 2000s game texture. It's missing some sort of depth to it. It's a beautiful thing. Alright, I think the last thing to take a look at is the little details around here, and then we'll fly inside the ship and check that out. So, details around here now. Let's try not to get ourselves killed or stuck. Obviously, they figured nobody's going to stick their head in here, so the geometry has gone hardcore low poly for all of this. Yeah, it gives a lot of detail as long as you don't get this close. Like, from this distance, looks pretty damn good. We could actually follow these pipes from here the way they come up. They go into this sort of converter with its little holy things and the big gray divider and the other extra pipe that comes out, goes right back in. I would have expected to go somewhere else over there, but whatever. This might move in the future. Also another smaller sort of power cable, so that makes me think this whole section at the top is going to stay connected to the ship. Comes down and then folds into this main body down here, which, wow, let's not glitch out. Seems to sort of just be a... hard to understand, but there's a big cylinder that seems to go down the middle of it all.
You know the saying, wrong place, wrong time? Well, let me tell you,
Uh-oh.
it doesn't get much wronger than this.
Am I about to be attacked by pirates? This is really not a good time. Anyway, some interesting geometry, but a little hard to see everything. Nice circle. Was that on the other side as well? It was not. Interesting. So they even did some asymmetry there with this big cylinder on this side and a circle on the other. Some pretty cool breakup. Can't really get a good look at it all, but there's enough there to give some serious detail some serious detail to it all. Alright, let's go ahead, put those landing gears down and take a look at that. Oof. It's a pretty thing though, this ship, ain't it? The front and back section connected with that really makes it for me. I don't actually own one of these. I'd rather have a Drake ship. Like, they just released a Drake scavenger ship as a starter ship. Pretty expensive, didn't buy one of those, but it was tempted if it was a miner. It was not. Definitely love that section at the top. Alright, let's pop the door open now. So we'll just go ahead and say, hidey ho door, kindly open. Not enter ship, just open ladder. So door slides out, ladder slides it down. So you can climb it up, or since we're in space, we'll just drift ourselves gently inside. Alright, change of plans. Let's just click on the ladder and say, get into the ship. Enter ship button, where are you? Enter ship. Suddenly gravity. Okay, and now watch the most dangerous thing on the planet, as that takes up the entire space where you would be standing. So you come up the ladder and you're still standing here, and it suddenly kicks you off with all those folding pieces. Quite horrifying. Also, it does mean, even though as cool as it is, that it folds in there and it's got all these little actual bits of geometry detail to slide along the roof and ceiling. Wait, that's the same thing. The floor and ceiling. And nice little light that's actually modeled in. Gorgeous. And look at the details here. The actual, again, the sliding rails. So it slides along the outside and sort of uses gearing teeth to move it. And it's actually modeled in, so you can see this piece fits along that. Gorgeous. Even though it's got all that, it still depressurizes the main living cabin of the ship. Bridge, luckily, doesn't. Also, you got a button here which you can close a door, which I think is cool. And it actually does say airlock access, even though technically that ladder is going to take up the whole space. Maybe in the future you'll be able to just open the door and not deploy the ladder, so you can use that tiny little space as an airlock. Could you not keep opening and closing? It would be very nice if I could just lock that door for now. Can I lock it? No. I'm interacting with something, but it's not what I want. Alrighty, so, into the ship we are. It is a relatively small space, but it's also a relatively big space, considering you have a single-seater craft. We have what I'm going to call the mini fridge. It's a storage thing, and it's not exactly mini. It's pretty. See, I just wish this level of detail was on the outside of the ship as well. They clearly think that nobody's going to do what I do and poke my nose at every single thing on the outside of the ship. But I do, and it looks bad. But the inside is gorgeous. Now, some of this is, of course, reused assets, which is the logical thing to do, because you should never be making assets for one time only. You should always think you can reuse them. So how do we start this? Shall we start at the front of the ship like we did on the outside? That doesn't make any sense. We came through this door. So we'll start right here. It has a beautiful aquatic feel to it with the MISC sort of rounded edges here and that sort of black plastic or metal around that. It then bulks out to the rest of the beautiful sort of completely flat metal wall there, which you can actually see it flattens straight into the ground. I don't actually mind that too much here. The ground itself is a beautiful amount of texture break up. Damn you, door. Where you can see that it's got the shiny metal bit, as well as a darker metal bit, and then the sort of rubber that's actually even got some wear and tear in it, a tiny little bit at least. The door itself, oh god, the beautiful curvature of these corners is wonderful, and the fact that it's got that slight beveled entrance into it. It's not just a straight in thing, it bevels in before going flat with the bits that hold the glass, then bevels out again. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I adore it. Even the buttons. Love little buttons, open and close. They almost look like they're holographically lit up, but I love them. Look at that. That's probably just a texture, but it's beautiful, the depth it gives, and the button layout. The door right here, which has been so busy opening and closing, I hate it. Well, okay, I don't hate it, but you look at that. I love the corner and the flat line. It has this nasty bulge out, but it sort of keeps the same design as the door, because this door has a pretty much the same thing. Gentle curve there, but then straight. Whereas frame rate just died, whereas this one has this huge curve out the whole way, and so does the window. This window also sort of bulges out before going back in, which I'm not a big fan of, but it does have a beautiful amount of texture breakup, and I love the asymmetry in it and this one, where it's got the buttons off to one side on each of them. Pretty cool. We also have hand railings as we came in here, and not only are they just hand railings sticking out of the wall, but they do have a little bit of geometry right here, even though you can count the polygons clearly. It does have nice geometry sort of holding it against the wall. Looks like it's got a, a holding puck there. The ceiling itself has this wonderful netting sort of holding whatever the heck that's supposed to be up there in place. Itself has this one inside of the MISC Freelancer where they have these larger metal pieces here and then fabric behind them, but now they have this actual sort of hold in place heavy fabric in front of all of that. Moving here we see the light actually curves up and disappears into the ceiling here, as well as of course having this little bit of odd geometry here, but rounded and then squared with the beautiful light texture above us. Absolutely gorgeous. I love it. As for the MISC pipes on the left and right sides, we actually have some texture work here to give you an idea of a vent, but it does have these nice little pucks, and it's a double puck as well, where it bumps out. Looks like it bumps in a little bit, but really it just curves towards the center point a little bit, so it's flat and then at an angle. But from any other angle, it sort of looks like it's got more of a bump in there than it really does, because the textures do their work. And these pipes themselves are not just straight lines, either they added a little bit of life and energy to them, and you can see they actually carry on all the way to the back of the ship. And this is a nice change too. Instead of a small one, it's got this really big one here, and then just a holder in place to keep them aligned before it disappears into the back. What I personally would have liked is holder comes down and then these fork down. The bottom two would fork down and then disappear into here maybe. But still, it's a great bloody thing. Moving on from the mini fridge, which I never really did talk too much about, which has access points that I can't really seem to access. For some reason I can't crouch right now. Oh Lord. What have I done? Alright, so access points clearly just textured in, but very nice. I love the way this fridge looks with a big flat point, and then this sort of curves, or goes on an angle back instead of just a curve, and then disappears straight in, as well as the bottom, the way it curves down and disappears into the floor. Bit finicky, but pretty cool, and we also have these beautiful bulges up on the floor all around here. I wanted to look at the fridge and then go with something else, but that didn't happen, did it? We ended up laying down and getting stuck there. Alright. Beautiful curvature there, and this whole piece you can imagine removing, and I don't know what's going on with flashing, but flashing is going on. Let's go to the toilet. Boop. Toilet access, men's and women's. Also, I'd just like to point out, I've not been talking about it much, but notice the breakup in all the texture work on all of this ship. It's a lot of time spent, I think, breaking all of these textures up and cutting them into different ways. And even like in here, look at all the bolts and different changes in the material everywhere, even if I never pointed out. It's a lot of, reusing the same assets, but it's beautifully done for the most part. Every now and again, I've pointed out a few truly wonky bits. For the most part, it's incredible. Anyway, we're in the MISC bathroom, and I absolutely fracking adore these shower and toilets all in one. It was something I wanted in the earlier ships when they started putting out. They had these huge showers and then huge toilets. And it's like, you need to combine that. You need to save space. Well, now they're combining them and saving a bunch of space, and it's fantastic. I absolutely adore it. More little vents, all texture work, I'm pretty sure, but it looks pretty good. You can see some polys there. It's a sad face. And this actually looks like it might be a real cut-in, which is fantastical too. Huh, look, you can almost have your bars of soap and stuff stored behind this little outcropping with a MISC plate on it. I expect probably the toilet slides, yes, look at that. I think there's actually a seam right there, so the whole toilet will slide back and out of the way, or maybe into the floor when you actually do want to take a shower. And then we have a nice fanciful little sink over here. Hello, little sink. I've just about locked myself, and that was horrifying. Ooh, beautiful light inset into the ceiling as well. Wonderful. And a medical thing that I don't think we can access yet, but I've noticed a lot of ships are now getting these medical things. I can't tell if that geometry actually bumps out. I think it's just flat, sort of merged into it, like it's melted in place with caulk or whatever. Interesting medical thing, though. Let's get out of there, close the bathroom door. Ta-da! I think this is another food sort of thing. It sort of looks like you get some drinks out of that. Got a water thing, it actually says there. And some towels, so when you step out of the shower, you can dry off. Again, it's the same sort of overall shape as a refrigerator behind us, where we got these curving down, the sort of sharp, hard edge there. The only thing I would massively complain about, and actually scream, why have you done this, would be if you look here. the geometry of this thing is actually merging into the support pillar right here, and then the same thing's happening down there, and it's even more apparent on this one where it's really just merging through it, and it's quite nasty. Quite nasty. That's horrible. Oh, we actually got little glasses in here. Oh, I'm so thirsty all of a sudden. Oh, I thought it was something on the glass. It's like actually a little thing where you put your finger down there, pop it, and the whole thing probably either slides up or maybe folds out. I imagine you pop it, slides all the way up into the other piece. Pretty damn nifty. They've actually modeled in these buttons too, and oh, I love the way the lights are blinking. Even if it's all just texture work, it's wonderful. It's really wonderful stuff. Love that too. The way this no, I thought I was going to lay down again. This section right here crops out. It doesn't just fold back in flush with the top of this opening. It actually goes down below the opening and then folds back in to be its own sort of mechanical compartment, or its own device, just in an opening. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. I even love the fact that the towels have their own separate section where it's actually a different piece of geometry sticking out of the larger hole inside this whole thing. So you can see a huge hole right here. And it's two separate things, the water and whatnots, and then the towels. I quite like that. Beautiful stuff. Oh, and this is actually modeled in, it looks like, too. Some weirdness where I can see behind that, where maybe they were trying to put a dark line on it and it didn't. Oh, I think they were trying to do some sort of texture beveling. It's somehow... Maybe it's supposed to look like that? I don't know. Maybe it didn't line up right. Because I can definitely see behind it right here. Maybe it's the lighting being weird. Absolutely beautiful. Down the center point, you've seen this in other MISC ships, this sort of double-lined thing right here. The MISC, what was it, not Freelancer, Starfarer. The MISC Starfarer had these like in the captain's area. It sort of reminded me of an aircraft, like a modern-day airplane. Ooh, and I still get that feeling from it. Help. Oh god, no. I told you I get stuck in ships. If I can just access the bed. Okay, we'll try the lay down button. Lay down button. Lay down button. God, no. Oh, where am I? Oh, thank God. We're free. I get stuck in ships so easily, you wouldn't believe it. Alright, looks like, even though our bed is here, which... God, that bed looks comfy. Sure, it might be like thin pillow things and lots of holes in them, but like you could just imagine laying up against that wall. Like you're laying here on your side against that wall, just like flailing your arms out and grabbing the pillows and like, I'm comfortable now. I quite like that bed. I quite like it a lot. Oh, I also love this little knockout puck here. Oh, it's on both sides. I wonder if a door comes down over that, and that's why it's got this sort of like movement rails there for some reason. Above it, it's got the same model as the medical stuff, but it's another emergency kit for fire this time. Looks like this is where you'll be accessing your ship components, which means, yes indeed, looks like these actually are modeled in to give the real depth, because I'm assuming these will have to be opened in the past. Boy, that's a tiny shield generator. And computer. I think the only things I've really missed are this side right now and the back wall, as well as these, which we have seen these before, I believe, where they bump up, flat, down again, and they are mainly beautiful when you take them in as a whole, because you get this nice, well, usually I like a little bit flatter, but curvature here, but then you get flat, flat, flat. Oh, and these are actually two different ones. This one bows out a little bit more. I bet you it would have looked a little bit better if they had had that one flat as well. Ooh, I don't know, though, because I was thinking maybe it would have hidden that. But if they did make that one flat straight up again, it would block the drink access, like those lovely cups. I don't know how they fix this. I guess maybe take this whole pillar right here and just move it to the right a little bit. And if they have the room, they can move everything else to the right a little bit, because what they risk doing when they do that is, of course, cutting into the bed area, which would be very bad. Either way, it's a lot of work. Also, I love the little indentation here within, like, let's imagine an AC unit. Oh, storage. Storage right here, and ventilation release. Yeah, that's pretty nifty. Then we got the back wall. Doors extend down. I don't believe we can actually access this at all. We could probably glitch into a wall, but let's not do that. Mining maintenance stuff here. We got access points for the gravity gen and jump drives over here. Can't access them yet. As well as life support and radar. I actually quite love the setup here on this ship where it's like all right here. You can just sort everything else out. And when you're ready to go to bed, you press a button, a hologram turns on right here on your TV, and you go, okay, sleep time. And just take a lay down. Nice comfy lay down. I really like this ship. Personally gonna hold out. Oh, there's a screen right here. And a mind your head warning. Let's watch some YouTube. Alright, let's hop out of this bed. Not log out. Exit bed. I hear they are making a lot of progress on the log out feature where if you log out in your ship, you'll log back in your ship. So no more logging out and then back at Port Olisar and having to grab another ship. That was always a faff. I do wish they had a slightly faster get out of bed animation, like if you just got in it versus just logged in. Alright, I think that's everything here pretty much. I mean, these actually, looking at them now, they actually bump out a little bit, so maybe these will get replaced in the future. These actually bump out. Maybe you press the access point and the whole thing slides out to like right here so you can access it from the sides. Or maybe you press the access point and the whole panel comes off and you just put it down here on the ground and then you can work on it. The danger there is if you're blocking that, maybe you pick it up and actually throw it somewhere and then fiddle with it. And then you're like, oh, it's blocking my way to... I don't know. We'll find out in the future. I suspect they'll just change those doors. Let me through. I knew you were going to try to be finicky. Alright, and to here we've seen this sort of cut in stuff before to give it some detail. It's all just texture work, but it usually works pretty well. But it's really working very, very poorly right now. Like, it just looks flat, like with a shiny spray paint on it. Oh, that's an interesting light, like an emergency light. I originally thought it just had a metal grate on it, like the old, probably 1940s microphones, or probably late 30s. There was another one in here. Ta-da! But I think they're just plastic, just weird plastic over the thing, over a light. Nice geometry amounts though. It actually has a bump down, then out and around, nice smooth, as well as of course the fact that it's got like these little supporting pucks that actually have a very interesting. They're almost like triangles, but smooth and lovely. Also, do you see that right there? Right there. When I look up, clearly looks like a pair of funky eyes and a nose sometimes. Anyway, this is very hard edge texture, or very hard edge geometry just disappearing into it. It would have been nice if they took this darker material here and actually dropped it back maybe a little bit more or something. But at least they did put a darker texture there, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. They tried, but it just doesn't work. For some reason, I don't remember it catching me so off guard over here. Maybe just because it was slightly higher up and farther away from me and darker. Huh. It also looks like they put some pucks here, so as this curvature of the wall goes up, it disappears behind a puck. That's always nice to have the pucks that sort of break it up. But yeah, that really catches me off guard. More handrails. Lovely bit of, like, look at this. The sort of hard edge there, and then a hard edge here, because then it comes up and all the way around and back down. It is truly gorgeous. My god, I love that. Nice little triangular light. That's not working right now. Alright. You can actually see, I think that's how it's supposed to maybe look. Maybe if I back all the way up over here and crouch, huh? Yeah, no. I think it's supposed to be a nice light, but it's not really showing up correctly, I don't think. And I can't actually lay down right now, so no way to find out. Some more fun little buttons. Beep, boop, boop. All texture work, but looking good. Another lovely puck with the pipes coming out of it before they go up and into the ceiling, and another little puck holder. Again, a big old puck here for this piece of beautiful metal that comes down. If we actually step back here, you can actually see it traces the whole edge of the cockpit entrance here. And it even has a texture change for the mind your step bit. Oh, which is beautiful the way they have that dark line there, even if the texture looks a bit funky there. Or the geometry or something looks like they welded it weird. Are those modeled in? Some of that might even be modeled in, those buttons. Either way, beautiful stuff. I really love the way it goes from this sort of square cutout right here, and then it has this that gives it that more organic shape, this cut in right here. Gives you more space, and then it comes down again. Slightly more organic and following all the lines to the front with those tusks. Gorgeous. Ooh, and actually look at these. So these, in a way, followed from in here, even though they sort of stop right there, and the ceiling in here is lower. It almost feels like they follow in, with so much beautiful light, and more buttons, or they sort of just merge into this with a nice dividing line. Oh, such shiny beauties. Ooh, wonder what you're supposed to be. Interesting thing. Was there one of those over here? There was. Ooh. Anyway, onto the chair. And it's, yes, having a bit of a fit. Beautiful chair. I'd like to say there's not much to say about it because I'd like the video not to be 3 hours long, but oh my god, is it a beautiful chair. We do immediately see some geometry issues above it on this stuff. Like, this just looks like a box with a texture thrown on it. Some stretch textures all over right here. Horrible, horrendous stuff. Wonky UV stuff going on there. That looks, well, I don't even want to talk about it. And I think we have some weird lighting going on at the very, very top there, as well as that thing. I've seen that in other parts. It's part of the tiling texture for these sort of stairs, or what, not stairs, gear cog points for things that slide. Ignoring, I thought that was supposed to be like star patterns right there. Capacitor control panel has like star patterns on them, but I think it's reflected light. There we go. Looks a bit better with that on. I love the bump down the pipes come into it, but really the chair itself is fantastic. Look at this thing. So we got this sort of almost like a rounded rectangle here, which then juts down to the top of the chair, but it's got a cut up right here, or cut in, where right here is all negative space, but they have more geometry in there with this little pop out the clamp and hold this huge mechanical arm that comes forward. And if you actually look at it too, it narrows out right here, not just up and down, but actually left and right. Some handles before you have all the screens that you're going to see in a moment when I actually sit down, all stacked up here on this thing, which is just brilliant. From that point, you can see we have far more moving joints, a beautiful amount of detail in it, pretty damn good. Some sticking into other geometry that looks a little weird, but I think it's alright. Before it comes down and disappears into the lower areas, we can see they have a big metal rectangle here, just covering stuff. Beautiful, gorgeous stuff. Truly gorgeous stuff right there. I love that. I wish I could crouch, but the game's, there we go. Wasn't letting me. Oh! I love it a lot less. My eyes were playing tricks on me. It wasn't the beautiful sight I thought it was. They were not flying women. They were harpies. Anyhow, yeah, I thought that just goes straight up. Slightly less interesting, but still nice. Lots of nice detail, like these little metal bits coming out and around, holding it into place. The beautiful pucks. I love pucks. So we got the little shiny metal puck that then reaches out and around and goes all the way up and back in. Don't know if that's supposed to be so you can hold on to it or if it's something else. We do appear to have some sort of O2 supply things on either side of it. And then all the way at the bottom, I think we've actually seen chairs very much like this before. We got the big rotator cuffs at the bottom that reach out to rectangular shapes. But it's all beautiful, crazy well detailed. As well as, of course, a nice fanciful headrest. This actually looks all very uncomfortable, very, very static. But it's still beautifully set up. Alright, so let's hop in it real quick. Boop. And watch these screens. And watch these screens. Beautiful, isn't it? Oop. Let's not move the ship too much. So, just gorgeous the way all those screens pop in and out. So pretty. And of course most of them are holographic, or they're actually projecting down, which I actually like a lot. Means you get some more field of view. Like I said, this ship has great field of view versus many of the other ships. Alright, so let's do two things. Let's do a number 5 to turn on spotlights, which can't actually tell if those work. And let's do a number F4. Such a pretty little thing. I think I actually owned one at one point, didn't I? Huh. No, I owned a whole transport ship at one point, but I think I sold that. Either way, doesn't matter. Let's press the rotate button to get some light on the bottom of the ship, and let's deploy those landing gears. So yep, sure enough, those were landing gear pucks. And you can also see all the engines rotate downwards. So, now what we can do is hop out of the seats and go look at those real quick. Just real quick, and then we'll actually go ahead and land it on a planet and show you the mining beam in action. Actually, you know what we could have done as well? While we get the landing gear out, let's also press the M button to switch to mining mode. Now what that does is deploy the big pretty thing. Alright, so now let's exit. And luckily that stays out, which, thank God. So we can actually look at it. Okay. Open door. Open ladder. Where's just the open door button? See, look at that. The thing moves in. It would just crush and kill you. Beautiful detail. Beautiful detail, all the moving parts and stuff, just gorgeous, but Jesus, it would kill you. Alright, so fly around here. You can see the spotlight somehow kicked in. It does appear there's light coming from the top of the ship, even though I don't know where that would even possibly be coming from. It's supposed to be mainly coming from these beauties right here, which I don't think I ever really spoke about them and just how gorgeous they are. I mean, look, they are connected through like these little connection pucks. Main feed, so you even got power flowing through them all. Beautiful. And then these lovely little pipes, and just the design of them, the circular with the flat end there. Just gorgeous. I love them so much. You can hear me licking my chops there. I was just like, oh, it's so beautiful. Alright, so now that this is deployed, we can definitely see some changes have happened here. So all those pipes still lead around that, but now it's much more out in the front. We can also see more of the same fabric we have here, but spread out a bit more. Leading along this beautiful body here into... Ooh, it's hard to see and move. Frame rate's being weird or something. Yeah, we're getting more stutters. Coming out around through a big old security puck that then leads us down into the base down here, which is actually a really cool wider piece. See how it's almost like one big piece but has a slight division, and you can see it's all designed to move on this piece here and this piece here, extend forward, as well as this whole circular piece here is moving in and out of the ship itself. Unfortunately in here we do have a bunch of texture stretching, weird wonky nonsense. They clearly don't expect you to stick your noggin in there, so let's not do that anymore. But yeah, it's not the prettiest thing, even though that is some gorgeous geometry right there, the industrial looks to it. Absolutely love it. And that cut in there, even like that corner having that little... Very interesting. Some beautiful stuff going on here as well. Once again, moving parts. So you can see this would actually slide up to there if it was closed while we were out here. Beautiful hinge work here, as well as some piston-y pistons. Don't know if they thought them all through, but let's assume they did. Gorgeous, just gorgeous piston work. Wish we could sit out here and watch it. But one thing we can do is hop in the spectator and open and close it from the outside of the ship. Again, this looks like it's supposed to actually... phone. This looks like it's actually supposed to connect here and come straight out, and then this will actually deform in the future. Guess it's still, they don't have that in yet. Yeah. Pretty nice overall. A lot of... Ooh, I'm bumping invisible stuff. A lot of these nice little strut pieces coming out, and the fact they actually look like they're welded on there than painted or something like that. Oh, Jesus. Just gorgeous stuff. Another rotator through there, rotations. Just gorgeous stuff, man. Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Bzz. And suddenly we died. Alright, let's look at those landing gears really... Ooh. Those are some bad LODs. Get the feeling they're completely automatically generated. They were hideous. What the hell? Alright. I almost just don't want to look at them. There's a lot of bad things happening here with textures changing. Like, this is higher geometry, but this gets rid of the texture seam. Oof. Not good. Pretty cool stuff with the piston joints here all hooked up, but none of that textures. Oh, and then it... You're better. Yeah, you're a little bit better. Still, the paint's so worn away in here. It's kind of weird. And there's still huge texture seams all over the place. This is something I've noticed, that they're skimping on the landing gears a lot more now, because they figure people are never going to be looking at them. They've started being a lot more cautious about what they actually spend time modeling out in the game, which is logical but disappointing. Like, look at these triangles right here. Just sad. Texture seams. Cool geometry, but frack, I can barely look at it because the LODs keep murdering it. And that was probably definitely the space we saw when we had that open. It was the space in there. Alright, let's hop back in the ship and fly it down to a planet and show you the mining beam. Alright, so let's do M to put that away. Let's do F4 to get into this view. Oops, didn't mean to move the ship. It's still moving. Stop. Stop, 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 stop. Bad ship. Okay, cool. Let's do Z and then hold F4 and do some arrow keys to zoom our camera in the best we can. I'll even drop our FOV a little bit in here. If you don't know, you can hold F4 and do the plus and minus keys on your numpad to go ahead and zoom in and out your FOV, as well as page up and page down to do some stuff like this, as well as the arrow keys to move about. Pretty cool stuff. Gotta hold F4 while doing it, and be cautious, don't press Alt F4. It'll, of course, close your game. Alright, let's press M. Yeah, it's pretty gorgeous. That's pretty gorgeous. Seems way more simplistic than I was expecting. You actually see the head of it moves too. Let's go ahead and move the camera over here and do the same thing. Zoom the camera in, shift it over, move it down. There we are. Expand that out. Hey, I put the landing gears away. Boy, oh boy, that's the things that hold the cargo on the sides there. I just noticed that shiny metal that's like all one big piece. It's gorgeous. Alright, so let's deploy that again. It looks like they thought the pistons through alright. It's beautiful. And the pipes do actually move the parts that I thought would deform do deform a bit. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go ahead and engine on. Alright. And then let's land on this planet. Luckily, we're at the bright side. So, let's see. We'll do an F2. Pop open this. We're at Daymar. Looks like the ArcCorp mining area is like right here, so we'll select that and land there. Or near it at least. Set his destination. Close that out. Ah. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay. Take aim at that. There's the new jump thing. If you haven't seen that before, I'm leaving it in the video because it is new, and some ships have different ones. We'll press B, awaiting spool. Press B, spooling up. You can also hold F, and up here we get like a shut down, but it often says spool up. And we can hold B down, and we'll jump into quantum, and it'll take us over to that point, or at least closer. Sage, that was just great camera work. That's the best camera work you've ever done. It's a beautiful ship. Let's do some little spins right here. See if we can see any maneuvering thrusters actually functioning. Not much. A few little things spewing out. It is a pretty damn gorgeous ship, though. Oops. Especially from that angle, I love it. It's a pretty good looking ship. Maybe not my favorite. Maybe not one I'll own, but I do like it. Anyway, let's go ahead and skip forward a little bit until we're down on the planet, shall we? Oh, also, mine as well, if we're right here still going. Re-entry effects. For me personally, these haven't worked in the last few updates, even though other people have been posting them. They're working for me now, so I can show them off. They're actually quite pretty, aren't they? Look at that thing go. Look at that thing go. Alrighty, something I figured I'd also mention in this video is they've improved your ability to see stuff from space and actually say, well, I want to go towards that ridge. And you'll actually end up at that ridge. You no longer get so many of the horrible, horrendous tiling textures from space or the feeling that you're floating on the terrain usually. Alrighty, so we've come down here. Let's really quickly do a tab. This switches over to a sort of map scanning system, which in space we did that once earlier, I believe. You saw the ping come out. So I can go ahead and click, charge that all the way up, let go, does a ping, and you can see it's mapped out tons and tons of ore. So what we can do now is close that out. Oh, actually, I guess we have to keep it open until we actually get up to one of them. Let's go for this little rock right here. Little tiny rock. They stick them in like clumps a lot of times, it seems. Is this actually a mineable one, or is this something under the earth? That seems to happen as well. So there you go, scans it. Diamond, there's actually some diamond in it. Jesus, this thing's full of everything in the world. What's its stability? Doesn't seem to be saying. So, let's go ahead. We'll press M, switch over to mining mode. Oh, Lord. And, so, welcome to mining mode on the MISC Prospector. Oh, boy, is it something. So, you'll see cargo capacity on our right. That's how much we can store. Fracture sensor and overcharge sensor are below that. Now, fracture sensor, if that gets all the way up, it fractures the rock, which is what you want to happen, actually. Overcharged sensor, that gets all the way up, it blows the rock to kingdom come. So, how do you tell? Well, if we look over to the left, you can see our laser throttle and rock energy level. Above those two, we have instability and resistance. So resistance is how much it's going to resist your beam, and instability is how just random and wacky it's going to be. This all ties into that rock energy level. You want to get it in the green. So what we're going to do is right click, switch to extraction mode, right click again, go back to fracture mode, and left click. And boy, that's loud. So you'll see nothing's happening. So I'm going to use my mouse scroll wheel and bump it up just a little bit. We're at 0.30% energy, still nothing. Rock energy level isn't changing, nothing's happening. I think it might have glitched out. I'm going to power this off real quick. I'm going to switch back over to the other mode and switch back again. I think the UI glitched out. Hold on. It's not even scanning this one now. Also with our UI glitched out, I can't see on the right whether or not it's building up the stability or whatnot. So we're pretty much guaranteed to be in trouble here. So, since we're in trouble, let's go into third person and... check it out. Yeah. Alright, so that was clearly bad. I suspect we've damaged the ship pretty badly. Let's get out of the seat for a second. Luckily, none of the alarms came on. That's happened before. It's quite annoying. Oh, Lord, did you see that? There's something I really hate in this game. The second you take any damage, everything goes full Star Trek. Yeah, well, we know what those lights are for now. Epilepsy warning, I guess. Beautiful amounts of damage. Just gorgeous. But from one rock? So yeah, that's the dangers of mining if you overload it. Anyway, we're mainly here for the looks, so that's what it looks like when you're cutting away at things. Pretty damn beautiful, really, the way it lights up the pieces of it. And then, let's throttle down, because that looks bad. Let's even turn it off. You can see it keeps boiling and fizzing for a while. Oh, don't explode. I really wish the UI would work. Damn you, UI. And suddenly, it's 24 hours later. So, you'll see at the bottom left, our energy level is around 50-ish%. The rock energy level is now in that green zone, which had vanished on us when the UI glitched out. And at the far right, you can see the fracture sensor, that was hard to say, is shooting up towards 100%. And in a second now, it will reach 100%. Ta-da! And at that point, the rock shatters. Now, these pieces, some of them can actually be broken up into smaller pieces, or a lot of times, usually after it's broken once, you can go ahead and right-click, switch over to the harvesting mode, gathering mode, and actually start collecting it up with that. Ta-da! Extraction mode. Now, unfortunately, see the orange outline around the rock? Means we still have to break it up more. So, again, we start the laser, we use our mouse wheel to scroll up our energy level. The rock energy level, the amount of energy in the rock, goes up. You can see it's gone into the red here, which is bad. And at the bottom right, you would have seen it is starting to build up there as well. And if that reaches 100%, the rock blows up. Like that. And of course that damages the ship and makes all the wonderful sparky things and hard to control. Now let's assume for a moment that you didn't make a mess out of it. You got the smaller chunk, you went ahead and kept it in the green zone. It broke and teleported a few feet away, and then you went ahead, right-clicked, switched to the gathering mode, or whatever the heck it's actually called, and then went ahead and started gathering it up. Well, then of course you get this beautiful sight of the 3 little tiny lasers from those projectors we looked at eons ago, zapping into the rock, and the center port is now sucking all of these parts into it. And then you can go between all the different ones that are highlighted purple. And yes, I did just say purple. You'll also see at the top right, it says the material in each of these rocks, just like you would in the larger rocks. And you can see below that the cargo capacity as it slowly fills itself up. Once you do get tired of, well, eating up the entire Earth, or I should say, once your inventory gets full, you want to go ahead. Try not to get distracted by doodling on the planet's surface with a laser for 10 to 20 minutes, even though it is quite addictive. But once you are actually done with that, go ahead and take your payload back to Port Olisar, click on the fancy request landing service.
Please proceed to assigned landing bay.
Actually, quite important here. Land at the fancy assigned landing bay. Boop. There you go, you get to see them work. Then head inside and find one of these fancy little kiosks on the wall. There's actually quite a few of them. From here, go ahead and interact. You select your ship at the top left. Boop-a-da-boop, tells you it's cargo, and then you can sell to refinery. In later versions of the game, there will be actual proper refineries you can sell to, but for now, pretty much wherever. Ta-da! You sold your stuff, you got just enough money to maybe repair, and that's pretty much it. Don't have to go back to Port Olisar, though. There's apparently quite a few of them. Anyway, guys, that is that. That is our extremely close look. Extremely close look at a relatively small ship called the MISC Prospector. Anyway, if you like this, of course, there's the YouTube up, down, vote, subscribing nonsense as per usual, but there is also this lovely little thing. It's called a referral code. So, if you'd like to go ahead and get into the game, and you want to give me a little bit of a kickback and get a little bit of something for yourself, about 5,000 credits, you can use that code. Please be aware, a bunch of other YouTubers, as well as just random people on the Star Citizen Reddit and forums, also have these. So, if you got a buddy you want to help out, you can also help him out that way. Or just help me out. Up to you. Anyway, guys and gals, that is it. The footage in the background has been biscuits dancing on the moon. Goodbye. Good night, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta.